There is a new coach in a college station. The Texas A&M Aggies have hired Mike Elko, the head coach of Duke, who was the defensive coordinator in Texas A&M before he took the Duke job. Did a great job at Duke. I don't think anyone's denying that. But I listen. I think we briefly said this yesterday. Maybe we said it off air. How much of an upgrade is Mike Elko over Jimbo Fisher? Because I think we gave Jimbo Fisher a lot of flack, and he deserved it, right? Because of the hype and because of the way everyone talked about Texas A&M while he was there. They're national title contenders. They had all these great recruiting classes and stuff like that. But part of having those great recruiting classes is Jimbo Fisher, because if there's one thing you can't deny, he is a good recruiter, and some of that is Texas A&M. But he's been a good recruiter. He was a good recruiter at Florida State. Obviously, won a national title. I don't think. I mean, we obviously know, but off the just rip, I don't think. And I know there were rumors about Mark Stoops. Maybe these guys are intriguing hires because you're wondering if they can take that next step. Like, I mean, listen, there's always a ladder to climb, right? In the coaching thing. You know, you saw it with Urban Meyer, dominated at Utah, then went to Florida, and now he's one of the best coaches of all time. Nick Saban did it. But I don't know. I don't think you can confirm or deny or say anything. This guy's going to be better than Jimbo Fisher, because as average as Texas A&M was on a yearly basis, they did have some good years, specifically 2020. They go 10-1. Unfortunately, because it was COVID year, people kind of forget about that. But I don't know. I thought Texas A&M be shooting for the stars. Maybe they tried to do that, and they're like, we don't need to do that this time. We need to go another direction. But I don't know about this hire.
Mike Elko is grounded. He's familiar with College Station. As you mentioned, he spent, I think it was like 3 or 4 seasons there as the DC. So, you know, he's certainly familiar with the program, its surrounding areas, and he's grounded. He's not, you know, a Jimbo Fisher star Hollywood guy who's, you know, going to mount to all this pressure and everything like that. Of course, Elko's going to have pressure because of the money and the resources at his disposal. So there'll certainly be that pressure. And you're in the SEC, there's always going to be pressure to produce when you're in the Southeastern Conference. But I tend to agree with you that this was an underwhelming hire, but that's not to say that Mike Elko can't elevate the A&M program to heights that we've never seen before, because there is always that chance. He, you know, revived a dead Duke program in a very short period of time, and that, you know, pretty much could be attributed to him. So, but I did want to mention just one thing that, you know, this isn't blowing me away, this hire, but that's not to say he can't work out for them. Timing in this sort of space is so important. You can look back to so many great jobs and just it comes down to the timing. Kirby Smart at Georgia, the timing of that was perfect. Alabama at Nick Saban, that timing was absolutely perfect. LSU had Nick Saban, and they were going to be what Alabama is today. Unfortunately, he had a taste for the NFL, got it, didn't work out, came back, and, you know, LSU had already moved on with Les Miles. I think the timing of things are very, very important, where Brian Kelly kind of ran out of steam. He had brought Notre Dame as far as he could possibly go with the resources at his disposal. LSU needed a head coach, and they went big game hunting. You could say the same thing with USC and Oklahoma and Lincoln Riley. I think that programs nowadays, obviously, if you want to move on from a guy, you should absolutely do it, especially when you have the kind of money A&M does. But you have to consider the candidates, and I'm sure they do consider the candidates before firing a guy like Jimbo Fisher. But do you really sit here and feel like a winner that you fired Jimbo Fisher and I mean, he's a consolation prize, Mike Elko. So I don't know how A&M fans, A&M boosters, people in the program themselves think, did we upgrade like you said to begin this segment? I don't think they did. And I think that a lot of it has to do with timing. The hiring pool is somewhat dry, especially for a program of Texas A&M's caliber. They are big game hunters. That's who they should be. Scott Woodward, who is now LSU's AD, he was A&M's AD, who brought Jimbo Fisher from Florida State. That's the kind of move they needed, in my opinion. Maybe they were tired of the star-studded Jimbo Fishers of the world and wanted a guy like Mike Elko, who's more grounded, as I mentioned. To me, I think they just, you know, missed out. That's what I think. You know, the hiring pool is come and gone, and there will always be a next candidate coming down, but I think they missed that window. I really do think they missed it.
It does seem like they didn't really evaluate the landscape of the potential coaches that they could go after before firing Jimbo Fisher, because I think you make a good point. I mean, this Jimbo Fisher firing could have happened at any point over the last 3 years. Clearly, they didn't care about the buyout, and they got that money scrounged together easily. So at any point over the last 3 years, they could have, gone to Jimbo and said, "Hey, that's enough. We want to go after someone else," and targeted someone bigger or something like that. I do think this is an underwhelming hire. And the thing about it is the expectations aren't going anywhere. The expectations are because of the program and the money that they pour in and the boosters and the fans and the psychoticness that is surrounded in that. That's what generates the expectations. Now, Jimbo Fisher added to that a little bit, but those aren't going anywhere just because they hired a less famous person to be it. Those expectations are still there. So if Elko doesn't go out there and win 10 games, even next year, there's already going to be, oh, did we hire the wrong guy? He doesn't do it in 2 years. People are going to be calling for his job. That's just the nature of the business in Texas A&M. It's been like that for 50, 100 years. And listen, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe that's why they haven't been able to become the program that they think they should be. But that's just the nature of who they are. And listen, I have no problem. People will be like, oh, why do Texas A&M fans feel like that? I have no problem with fans wanting greatness. Like, why should they settle for anything less than greatness? They should want that. Now, maybe that forces their hands a little too early, like maybe it did in this situation when there wasn't technically a guy they really could go after in an upgrade style fashion. But I have absolutely no problems. And anybody that's sitting up there saying, oh, why should you feel that way? You haven't been good ever. You've never won a national championship. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. The expectation should always be greatness, especially at a program like A&M.
Two things. I think that Jimbo Fisher's name, the fact that he's won a national title, the fact that he got that massive contract adds a lot more pressure than what Elko's coming from a Duke program he kind of revived, and then a much lesser contract that's very incentive laced. I do think that I do think the comparisons, I do think there's pressure because of the SEC, because of the resources at his disposal, but Jimbo Fisher's name added a lot of pressure on that program. Now, with that being said, to your point, yes, fans should absolutely still have expectations because that is one of the best jobs in the country. And I hate when people are like, well, they've never won a national championship. They've never had sustained success. That is not the measure of a good job in today's day and age. You know what the measure of a good job in today's NIL world? It's resources. It's resources to build your staff. It's resources to go and recruit kids through the portal. It's to kids who want to potentially leave your program to keep them there. That is the measure of a good job in today's day and age. The resources at your disposal. And there are very few schools in this nation that can match what Texas A&M can do. So I don't want to hear that this isn't one of the best jobs in the country because it absolutely is.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. Coming up after the break, we got some MLB insider information. Now, it's not ours, but Shohei Ohtani, a realistic landing spot for the Braves.